Okay, folks, we are live and we are talking about this XRP run that we're currently on. Now, if you have not joined this channel and you have not subscribed to the channel, definitely make sure you are doing that because honestly, you have to get in the game. You have to get in the game. There's been a lot of cash made recently, and we're going to talk about what's going on with Coinbase and what the moves have been, why people aren't doing this. I will never understand. Where's my cash out? Oh, that's what's going on here. What is going on here? Cash. Let's put that all the way up top. There we go. Okay, okay, okay. Let's put that over there. Let's put that right there. All right, all right. Put you back over here. Click. And boom. All right, this is how we're going to rock with this from now on, I guess. hmm Let's do it like that. Let's do it like that. Yeah. Boom. All right, let's get it. Let's get it. Let's put you on top. All right, let's get it. Yes, yes. There we go. All right. So, yeah. If you have been late to the party, um, welcome, welcome, definitely welcome. Um, what has happened in the last week? And I'm looking at my Coinbase chart, and I'm trying to educate anybody who wants to listen of how easy it would have been without any thought or any experience, really, to have just sat on whatever amount of money you could have had just laying around. If you had 100, like for this experiment, um, how you could have turned that 100 to $155 in a couple of days without doing any work at all. Um, Keep in mind, if you had $1,000 when we purchased um, these tokens, these XRP tokens, um, a couple of days later, like less than 7 days later, that would have been another $550 today. You know, close to $750 if you had watched it and wanted to take it out on the 22nd at midnight. So here's a recap of what happened. Um, just move your dial, and if you're using Coinbase, that's fine. If you're not, other applications exist. But the purpose of these tech talks is to demystify some of the questions that people have. I deal with people who have very limited IT skills and any computer skills at all outside of Facebook and posting things. They do not want to look at screens. They do not know what they're doing. They're afraid they're going to make some kind of mistake. This channel is dedicated to try to get some of that fear out because you're really costing yourself some cash. The opportunity to have turned money that you have lying around into a profit, essentially making money while you sleep. And this is the key to building wealth, is having your money go to work for you instead of letting it lazily sit around. There is risk involved, of course, but you want to make sure that you are limiting your risk by doing certain things like setting limit sales, not getting too greedy, You got a good chunk of money. You had days to act, and you still haven't done anything. Whether you made $55 off of just sitting around, or $74 if I had pulled it out on that time, you would be you would be ahead of the game. So let me explain what happened, so you guys who are new to IT or are new to anything related to not just crypto but any investing, um, how is it that people just keep making money off of just things that we haven't been educated on? And that's the whole purpose of this thing, of this channel. We have to start telling people who do not have this experience how to get at that cash legally. We watch too many people get out in these streets over the years, made some bad decisions. They may not have seemed bad to them at the time, but they were bad decisions. You chose to risk your freedom for a quick gain. Well, here's a quick gain. The returns are not as lucrative as them street ways were, but far more safe. You don't have anybody chasing you down. You don't have anybody scheming on you like that. You have a way to report your income legally, so nobody cannot lock you up for doing something erroneous or illegal. You are on the straight and narrow, and this is what it's all about: longevity and consistency in doing something that's going to benefit you in the long run. So, one of the things that I have learned over the past 30 years in IT, and this is as a technician and as somebody that worked on the help desk, somebody that worked in field services, repairing the actual physical hardware. I find that people put far too much fear into buttons that they normally would use on every day. I mean, you don't have any fear of that cell phone that you're on, at least 44% of you. And you manage to live your life every day. And, you haven't run into many technical problems. And that's great. But there's ways to sit up here and make money sitting down. And in this day and age when you are struggling to make ends meet, what could an extra $74, or in some cases are the people on this channel who put in $1,000 on the day I told them to put it in, 7 days later they put $750 in their pocket. What does that mean? Well, you can immediately pull that money out if you're on Coinbase. All of it, or just the $750 profits you made. Cool. That would be cool, right? For some of us, that's the difference between having to rent money and not having to rent money. But investing is not for short-term gains. Now, you do with your money what you want to do with it, and you're looking for a way to come up. Understand, um, it's only buying you some time when you do things like that. You're gonna have to pay taxes on that profit. All right, you're gonna have to pay taxes on that profit. It's not gonna be 100% of what you earn, of course not. But you got to set aside some of those earnings to pay. I would say be prepared to pay at least 30-40% in some cases, depending on how frequently you're withdrawing these, or how soon you're withdrawing these proceeds. The best plan of action, and this is not coming as a financial advisor because I'm not one, but the best plan of action when you're dealing with investments is to keep it long term. You hold those profits and protect those profits by cashing them in and converting the XRP in this case to USD and just letting it sit on chain, or put it in a crypto wallet. We have videos on how to do that, what wallets to buy, somewhere you can just put it away. If you want this thing to stop making money, have no potential of making money, that's what you do. But if you want to make this thing keep growing with the market, and risk the market going down and losing those proceeds, you can do that as well. But the key here is do something. Don't just sit up and talk about, oh, I hate my job and I don't know how I'm going to make it without it. You got to start doing things in addition to working where you can uh, grow grow your net worth. Go ahead and hit that cash app. Hit me up if you like this content. I'm gonna keep trying to do something more consistent on a consistent basis. I'm gonna start doing these lives in the morning, and we'll talk about what's going on in these crypto streets. So here's a brief synopsis of what I did. Okay, I already had like $50 just sitting around in this account on the 13th, right? I decided I'm gonna make it an even 100. Why did I do that? Well, because XRP was trading at 99 cents or a dollar on August 13th. So in a nutshell, it was a US dollar per token. That's what it was. Now the last time it got that low or below, there was a significant increase in a very short amount of time. And this is when XRP was still going through its SEC case. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, XRP is a cryptocurrency like Ethereum, like Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, everybody kind of knows what that is, right? It's a digital currency. XRP was a token of a different breed. And one of the problems that the Security Exchange Commission, SEC, had with XRP is that it wasn't classified as either a commodity or some kind of currency, like a cryptocurrency. It was a totally different classification. And there was some confusion at the federal level of how these proceeds, this digital asset class, could be taxed, or what are the rules. Was this something that fell under the jurisdiction of the Securities Exchange Commission, or was it something else? Long story short, that case dragged on for years. And during that time, XRP was suppressed. When it became obvious that all the things that the federal government were alleging against XRP just didn't hold up to its particular asset class type, the federal government actually lost that case. And when that happened, XRP that had been trading at a dollar per token shot up to $2, $3. So what that means, if you had 750 tokens or 7,000 tokens, roughly 7,000, and at the time it was less than 50 cents. So people had maybe $3,500 worth of this token, which means they had 7,000 tokens that shot up 2-3 times what they paid for it. So 3 times 7,000 was like $21,000. And that happened within a very short period of time. All right, it has since fallen back, just like all the other cryptocurrencies, but you're still sitting around a dollar. So think about it. From all that time, you had purchased this thing very early at 40 cents, 50 cents, whatever it was, and it shot up. Had you kept that money in there, it'd have been worth that much money at its highs. We're doing a small experiment here. You can see by my little chart, I went ahead and purchased that extra $50 worth of XRP on August the 14th. Okay. August 14th was nothing more than a day in the week. We decided to start talking about this again because we know there's some things in the news that you should be paying attention to that's going to affect what direction this token is going. And at a dollar token, it was a good idea to go ahead and put any little money I had aside. In this case, it was only $100 for this experiment. and just let it sit there. I'm not going out getting any cases of soda or, spending half of it at McDonald's on a meal or whatever, because, it's getting to the point where you go out to eat and it's for yourself and it's going to be like $40, $50 nowadays. $20 for a sub, something like that. It's crazy out here. So learn to cook, number one, and put your money into an exchange versus into your stomach. So anyway, on Thursday, it was trading at $1. I had 100 XRP tokens in there. You go into the next day, the 14th, it's not really moving. 15th, 16th, not moving. Monday. So we go back from Thursday to Thursday. What starts happening? It starts to rise. I've gotten $10. By Friday, this is 8 days after it's made another $15. I'm up to $1.35. $135. The price of the token was $1.35. It kept going. $1.40. It hit a peak Saturday, this past Saturday, of $174. XRP trades every day. It doesn't stop. It's not like the stock market where it goes Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. from the opening bell, like 9:30 a.m. to like 4:30. That's the opening bell on Wall Street. Cryptocurrency markets don't stop. There's 24 hours all the time, every day. So that's why on a Saturday, it had peaked at $1.74 per token. This is like a 50-60% return on investment of a week ago, something around there. It's crazy. And again, just add a zero to this number over here, and that's how much money you would have made. So if I had $1,000 in there, it would have been $550 that I had made in little on over a week, like 8 days, and it's still holding. Now, you don't have to be a seasoned investor. You just took some money, put it to the side, held on to some tokens. That didn't involve any advanced knowledge of how markets move or anything. You just thought this thing was going to be worth more later on in the week than it was when you first bought it. And if you wanted to sell it at that time, if I want to sell this right now, I could just pull out the $100 I put in plus the $50 I made, and I have $150 ready to spend if I want to spend it. You got to understand that this day and age, there is a need. People are not being able to make rent. Now, you can't keep doing this kind of thing every month, right? Unless you know some inside track, and that gets into insider trading. So we're not going to talk about that, of course. But if you got some kind of metrics or vehicle where you can watch the markets grow, you might not get the kind of return, this 37% return that we got on XRP this week. But honestly, having any kind of return on any amount of money is a good thing. It increases your pockets, and that's all it's about. That's all it's about. Now, some people have these temporary goals, and this is why you need to be contacting your financial advisor. If your goal is just to, hobbyist and do stuff like this and just take that $55 and, put down on some sneakers or whatever, I don't know. I don't get into what you're spending your money on. But this is how wealth is generated. That money just made money on itself. And all I did was sit there and let's let it happen. And I didn't take it out. I've been talking this whole, 20, 30 minutes, and that money's still sitting there. So you're not constantly watching these ticks and talks on this market. No, you're just sitting back and letting it do what it do. What if I lose all of my money? Something drastic happens on the market and the bottom falls out. At $100, am I really tripping? Nah. But I have the opportunity to set alerts. And it's like, okay, as soon as it gets close to 100, like if it drops down 110, maybe I just take my money out. I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose anything. I sold it when it got low. I'm just sitting here letting it do what it's doing. I mean, it's been fluctuating all day. I'm up $42. Um, and that's the last 24 hours. I look at that day, and there it is. It's gone down $2. But over the week, I was up $55. $55 off of 100. So I made, you know, a 50% increase on my return, which is crazy. Which is crazy. This is the thing that got people spoiled because you have people who had $10,000 sitting around just in XRP. What would that been? Wasn't that like 5 grand? It's not 500. It's like 5 grand. You got $10,000, and this to know that in 7 days it had made five just for sitting around. You don't make that kind of money working day 9 to 5, but it takes money to make money, right? It takes money to make money, and coming from where we come from, a lot of us, we're not privy to that information. Nobody taught us this in school. If you were in Springfield, Massachusetts, you went to the High School of Commerce or Putnam like I did. Um, where were you going to get that information? Who were going to tell you that? Somebody had to be in the markets to actually know. I knew one guy that actually knew this stuff. Um, Vaughn G. The shouts out to Vaughn. And there was a particular crash that happened in '87. And I remember him looking at these papers and he was talking about what happened because I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what the hell these news articles were talking about. And at the time, it was probably the largest drop since the Great Depression, and people really panicking. But he knew what it was, and he explained it to me. And I know ever since then, I started paying more and more attention to it, even though I hadn't, got to the stage where I was even knowledgeable of any of the terms going on. That was back in the day when they still used fractions on the screen. They hadn't used decimals on your stock reports. It was still fractions. Um, it's crazy. It was crazy. But I'm telling you this to say that there's been information in it, but it wasn't through a formal education. You had to actually have somebody that knew something about what they were talking about. So years later, I still don't know everything I need to know, but I know how to use these apps. I took what I learned in my computer classes, how to get familiar with these screens and how to purchase things. You step into a grocery store and you see people struggling at the self checkout. They don't know how to use a card. They don't forgot they pin, all kinds of stuff. And for me, it is it's a trigger because I'm like, how could you get to this big age at this time? Self checkout has been around forever, and you're still fumbling around it. Now, granted, a lot of these people, they're not old folk. They're young people. They just have no clue. No clue. Get frustrated, start calling for, cashier assistance because they don't know what they're doing. And is it their fault that they don't know what they're doing? It kind of is because you got time to educate yourself and you have to commit something to memory. Same thing with these markets and these exchanges. You got to start getting into it. Find out what you don't know. Learn what you don't know and get your bread up. You know, too many people wait to the last minute and figure out, dag, if I had only did this, I wouldn't be stressing about this blown tire that I had. You would have some resources without affecting your bottom line or having to take money out of your paycheck, your already stretched thin paycheck, to do something about the limited funds that you have. These quick legal come ups are what people are looking for. And if you ain't on that time, you ain't on that time. Um, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and try to be more consistent about these lives, and we're going to go ahead and get it popping. Um, we'll be checking out other um, we'll be checking out other exchanges like Uphold and Webull, where I've got another $134 sitting down there getting a 34 um, percent increase because I put another XRP account out there. You know, that's $200. So altogether, I put $200 out there and I've made about $80. You know, I'm getting close to 75% return. You know, you got $200 out there, you're making $80. It's almost like, yeah, it's like 25%, 25, excuse me, 25% return of just made money. My money is making money. And it's just one of those ways you can do that by getting in at the right time, doing some things with your accounts. And then, hey, when you feel like, hey, I've gotten enough, pull out, pull out. But a lot of you guys, your pull out game is weak. And so are the kids. So anyway, um, get with it or get ran over by it. We're gonna try to do this every morning. We'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm also gonna be keeping my content going, but definitely holla at your boy, and we will be